What you guys, got another PC build here for you. I'll go through the parts as we're building it. It's not going to be a highly edited and polished video. It's just going to be me putting a PC together. So I thought I'd take you along for the ride. All of the parts were picked by someone else and I'm just going to be putting it together for free for them. So here we have the Gigabyte AORUS B650 Elite AX version 2. I'm just going to get it out of the box here. It seems to be quite pinched in there. So let's get it out. So this is what we're working with here. So we're going to be putting just one drive in this. He has ordered another drive, but he can put that in himself. So what we're going to do is just remove this heatsink here. Now this does support Gen 5 NVMe drives here, but he's got a Gen 4, but that's okay. It's plenty enough for this system. So let's go ahead and remove this here. We will need to remove the plastic coating underneath there, which does have that thermal pad on it. Looks like it's a toolless design here, which is going to hold the drive in place. So let's get the drive so we can insert it into the M.2 slot. So this is not really a how-to guide, just me putting a PC together. So we went with the Samsung 990 Pro, and this is a PCI Express 4.0 NVMe M.2 SSD. Read speeds are 7,450, which is not too bad at all. Now, it does accept a Gen 5 drive, but he went with the Gen 4. So I'm just going to slot this in right here and push this down. And there's a little tiny catch here that you have to push over. And again, what that will do is it will lock the drive into position. And then we can then put the top back on, which is the heat shield, to dissipate heat from the actual drive itself. So there is a part on the bottom here that we need to remove. This is the thermal pad. And we're going to just slot that in and screw it back down into position here. Pretty simple stuff. He does have other drives to populate. And just below that, you'll see there is another big heat shield there, which will have another 2 drive bays in there, which you can populate underneath there as well, I think. So let's go ahead and just screw this down. So that's now done. And again, he can put a Gen 5 in there at a later date if he wanted to. This is where these 2 drive bays are underneath here as well. So let's go ahead and get the CPU, and we're going to be also using this AM5 secure frame black mount here. I've never used these before, but he wants it put on the system, so I'm going to go ahead and put that on here. There was no instructions in here, and I've never inserted one of these. I think it's just to keep the CPU clean basically, and you have to remove that that retention lever and the outer casing there so you can put this on. It does come with some thermal grease here, which we won't be using, and also that tool there to remove the screws there. So it's an Allen key there they've give in the kit. And this is it right here. And it just sits over the CPU. And the way these AMD CPUs are designed, I think they can get thermal paste sort of caught in there, but a little bit of isopropanol alcohol and a Q-tip will remove all of that from there anyway, so you don't really necessarily need this. I don't think it does any other benefit other than keep the CPU clean. I've got some screws here to replace the ones that are on the board, so let's go ahead and we're going to remove the outer cover here and put in the CPU, and then we can remove the shroud. But if you wasn't putting one of these on, all you'd need to do here is lift the retention lever up. He's gone for an AMD Ryzen 7 7800 X3D processor here. 8 cores, 16 threads on this, 5 GHz max boost. Nice processor. And again, the parts were chosen by him, not by myself, which I think this is a nice little chip. And again, we're going to go ahead and put this in. I don't know what that staining is on there. I'd noticed that when I took it out of the packet. So I noticed that on a couple of little bits here. So maybe he's had them out of the box or something. I really don't know. But what we'll do is we're going to lift that retention lever. I'm just examining it right here to see what that was. I'll give it a quick clean. I'm just checking the pins to make sure they're not damaged in any way, shape or form. You should always check to make sure. The triangle goes up to the other triangle on the board. You'll clearly see that stated on the board. Slot into place, and that's it. Pull the lid down, and you should see a little triangle here on the processor. I've got a torch here to show you, and it's also on this little socket holder here. You can see this on the socket as well. You can see the triangle matches up here. And then basically all we need to do here is just pull that down, and literally pull the retention lever back and you're pretty much good to go. The plastic part will pop off. I'll quickly show you that right here. So just slot this into place, pull that back. It's a bit tight, but that's how it's meant to be. And then this plastic thing should pop off. And then all you need to do then is keep this part safe, just in case you need to return the board, and you would need to put that back on. But we're going to remove this now. It didn't say anything about undoing the retention lever there or keeping the retention lever down. I really didn't know. It just made a little tiny click as I pulled it off, and it just comes off like that. And it's just mounted to the board by 4 screws. So there's no instructions telling you what to do. So I just winged it and just went with the removing the 4 screws here. And all we need to do now is just slot this over. I think this is an aluminium block here. We're just going to slot that over, and you can see how tidy that looks. And you just put the 4 screws in, and it just holds it all into position here and stops any thermal paste getting down onto the CPU itself. There's some little chips around there, and if you're using conductive compound, that could be pretty dangerous as well, and I think it's just used for that. So let's go ahead and screw this down, and the pump will go straight on top of this because he's using a Kraken 360mm rad on here, and that's how we're going to be setting this up. I will remove the outer bracket, which is the stock bracket that comes with the board. So you just have to tighten this down. So I'm going to go ahead and tighten all 4 of these down so they're nice and tight. And that should be that job done. And we can move on to the next step. So here we have all the screws down now. And what we're going to do is I'm going to remove the outer bracket here because we don't need that outer bracket. But I do like the look of this. It does look quite nice. They're only about £10 to buy. They're not that expensive. I don't think they have any benefit to cooling or anything like that. But again, I'll have to test that a little bit later on. So keep this safe as well, just in case you have to return the motherboard. And I'll put that in the motherboard box. And I'm going to go ahead and remove the outer brackets here now. And we'll keep those safe as well. So what we're going to do here is we're going to be using the tools in the kit here. This is the Kraken Elite 360. Again, quite a big beefy cooler. He is using quite a big case here. So all we need inside here right now is the actual tools to mount the actual pump. So I'm going to get these out right here, and we can come back to this a little bit later on. So I'm going to remove the screws here for these brackets. So let me go ahead and get my screwdriver, and we can remove these. Now, again, you can use electric screwdriver if you wanted to, or you can use a hand screwdriver. I use a hand screwdriver. I don't really see much point in the electric screwdrivers, really, with such small screws. It's not that difficult, and it gives your arm a bit of a workout as well. So I've gone ahead and removed the bracket from the board and the 4 screws, and I've put those into the actual motherboard box. I've just gotten out the standoffs here for the pump, and also the little plastic covers here. You can see these. Now they go both ways. There's an AM4 way and there's an AM5 way because they're 2 different sockets. And it's that little pattern part that has to go up for AM5. It does tell you, and the thick thread will go into the actual board itself. So I'm just going to quickly rotate these and slot them in. Now they have to go inside. You have to sit them inside when you're mounting them because there's a little shelf inside here. It does tell you AM5 on top here and AM4 on that way. So that would go downwards like so. So let's go ahead and get closer to the board here. So you can see that part here with the pattern on it, that would go upwards like so. And the thick thread would go inside into the board. So let me go ahead and drop that in. And these are just done with finger tight here. So I'm going to go ahead and drop that right inside and tighten this up with my fingers here. Now you may be thinking, why don't I just put the screw in first and then drop the plastic part over the top? You can't do that because there's a little tiny shelf that screw sits on top of. So you have to put it in that way. And they're only going in finger tight. And once that's done, you should have all 4 of these sitting in. And this is for AM5 socket. The AM4 would be rotated the other way. Now, everyone has their own way of doing this. Basically, I will put all of the parts onto the board before it goes into the case. That way, it's all prepped and ready to go. And some people will do this once it's inside the case. Everyone has their own method of doing it. I found this is the easiest way of doing it. And then once I put the motherboard in the case, I can then just basically put the radiator on and then leave the pump dangling and then just attach it. It's that simple. Next, we're going to just put the RAM in. He's got Vengeance RGB DDR5 64 gigabytes of 6400 megahertz Corsair RAM, and that's going to be going in here. 4 slots, so that should give him, room for upgrade. You don't need any more than 64 gigs of RAM unless you're doing some really intense graphic design or hardcore video editing, but that should be perfectly fine. And there's a little plastic cover on these to protect the logo, so let's go ahead and remove that. And these will only go in one way, so just pull these little levers back on the actual slots that you're going to be populating. Some of them have a fixed slot on the end, like a lever, one fixed lever, but on this one they have both levers that pull back. And then just line the notch up and then just slot it in the groove, and then you should hear a click. I see a lot of people asking questions about whether the motherboard should be on the box or whether it should be on a table. I prefer it being on a hard surface. That way you're not flexing the board in any way, shape or form. If you do it on the box, you get a bit of a flex in the board, and you can break traces and stuff like that on the board. So be careful if you're using that method not to put too much force. But there we go. That's the memory inside. And we have this huge case, which I've never built in before. And it's a little bit overkill, in my opinion. It's a lovely case, but very expensive, in my opinion. Also, this one doesn't have the digital display on it, the LCD display. It's called the HYTE Y70. The one without the LCD display is about £200 in the UK, which is quite a bit of money. And if you're having the LCD display, you're looking at £400, which is absolutely astronomical for a case. And again, it will take a 360mm rad on top here as well. And you've also got room for another 3 120mm fans on the front face there, and also at the back you can put an 140mm fan plus another 2 on the bottom if you want to. So I'm just going to pull all this stuff out, this plastic stuff here, foam to protect it. It's a bit wobbly there, but we're going to pull all this out and get the screw pack that is in the back. But you can see how big this case is. It is quite a huge case. And again, it's like a fish aquarium. That's what it looks like to me. And I should imagine it will look very nice when it's all done. Do you need a case of this size? Probably not. But, each to their own. People like to have a lot of fans nowadays, and that's another hot topic. How many fans do you need in your case? I mean, this will accept 3 up the top, 3 in the front there, 1 at the rear, and probably 2 or 3 in the bottom, which to me is just like insane. So let's go ahead and pull out these screws here. This is the case screws that come with the case itself. Cable management in this is going to be really easy. You've got a couple of straps down the bottom here. You've got room for 2 SSDs here as well for a little bit of extra storage. All the cables are nicely clearly marked, and all the packet screws are labelled as well. So I'm just going to remove this here and get this all ready. On the bottom, you've got a really good quality mesh filter here for dust. And again, you can mount some fans in the bottom here, thumb screws on the bottom there, as you can see. But you're paying a lot of money for this particular case, so you'd expect something decent like this. A little bit probably overkill in my opinion, and the cost is pretty high for a case like this. So I've got it laying flat down here. The glass is still attached on the front. You can remove this. I'm just checking here for the standoffs to make sure all the standoffs are in the right locations here. Any standoffs that are not in the right locations, you'll need to remove those. Otherwise, you'll end up grounding the board out when it's laying flat down. This is for the graphics card here. It does come with a case. It allows you to do a vertical mount for your GPU here. The covers for the cable management is pretty good as well. So it just hides all the holes. And putting the cables in are going to be a real breeze in here. He's also got some pretty high-end fans here. Probably overpaid on the fans. because they were about £350, I think, for all the fans, which are those Lian Li connected fans, which are pretty nice. And they do have that LCD display on them. So I'm just going to drop the motherboard inside here and line this up here. And once this clicks into position, I'll screw it down. So once this is done, we'll pretty much have all the main stuff mounted inside here. And that's why I prep the board this way, because it makes it so much easier to build. So let's get the screws out. And what I noticed with the HYTE Y70 here, everything is labeled inside here to make it nice and clear and easy for people that have never built a PC before. It's the small little touches that make things really easy for people, especially for novices that haven't built a PC, that just look at a bunch of screws and have no clue what they are. If it tells you for the motherboard or for the hard drive, it will help people to be able to use the right screw for the right job. So I'm just going to get these screws out and we can then mount the motherboard down. And I'll quickly shade the screws here with the writing on them. It's only a small little thing, but these little small touches mean quite a lot. So you can see here, they're all labelled nicely and in separate baggies as well, which makes it super easy. Now you can use whatever screwdriver you want, whether you want to use a hand screwdriver or you want to use one of them precision screwdrivers. The choice is yours. The small little precision screwdrivers are really handy and really nice to use. If you're building a lot of PCs, that would come in really, really useful. You don't really need to use the big super duper built-in type screwdrivers really, because they're just overpowered and they end up going to strip screws. So just use something with a little bit less power and something that has a clutch on it to stop it from over tightening if you are going to use a precision electric screwdriver. But I'm just going to use this hand one for now. I do have precision screwdrivers at hand, but for this case, I'm just going to use a hand one. So just go ahead and proceed to put the screws in, and these are located all around the board. So just go round and screw these down until it's firmly mounted to the case. And once that's done, we can move on to the next bit, which is fitting the 360mm NZXT Kraken Elite cooler. Again, he picked this himself. That's what he wanted. So that's what I'm going to put in here. He's going to be replacing the fans that come with this with his own Lian Li fans, and you'll see that a little bit later on. These are cheaper fans and he doesn't want those. So I'll go with the fans that he wants. And we'll just pull this out. Now, this is the reason why I mount my coolers this way, because I find it easier. All I need to do here really is just mount the actual radiator to the case now. I'll leave the plastic over the top of the pump so it doesn't disturb the compound on there, and it's super easy. So these are the fans he's replacing it with, these Unifan TL120 RGB fans, and these are from Lian Li. They're not cheap. And that's probably another heavily debated topic. Do you need to spend a lot of money on fans? These fans are top of the line. They have their connectors here. What I do like about these, they're interlocking, and you only need one cable to go to an actual controller to control all of these, which make it super tidy and super easy to mount these. And also you don't have a lot of cables everywhere, because normally you would have a power cable and also you would have an RGB cable, and that would be quite a lot of cables if you're populating all of the fan slots on that case. So we've got the cables here. I'm just going to pull the rest of these out and we can interlink them and get them onto the actual radiator itself. Now, they're very well built fans, and they also have ones with LCDs on them. Now, this is the stock fan that comes with the actual Kraken Elite cooler here. You can see it looks pretty basic. And again, I agree, they are not the best fans. But again, spending this sort of money on this series of fans, it does come with its own controller here to control the actual fans as well. And there's a bunch of stuff inside here. So let's go ahead and get this mounted. Now these should just interlock like this. You just slot them in and then click them into position. And there we go. And that's simple. just 3 interlocked fans here, and then all we need to do is grab one cable, connect it to the outside and connect that to the controller. Now these little tiny plastic things do pull off for you to be able to screw these in, and then you can basically put the covers back on after you're finished. I think that's a really nice touch, a really nice design, and it looks good quality as well, not these rubbish sort of rubber grommets that will just sort of fall apart when you pull them off. They are pretty good build quality. So all I need to do now is mount this onto the radiator using the big long screws that come with the radiator kit. So I'm going to go ahead and do that right here and screw this down. And there's quite a few to do, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. I won't bore you to do all of these, but it should look something like this once it's all done. So I've kept the plastic over the pump, as you can see here. And I'm going to put these rubber covers back over. And that just hides the screws, which I think is a real nice touch from Lian. Again, the cost of the fans are pretty extortionate. They really are. I think these 3 fans are over £100, which is a lot of money for 3 fans. So there is the connector here. And we're just going to connect this on. And we just put this straight to the controller here. And that's it. You're pretty much done. You don't have to worry. So I'm just going to slot this into position, and it just slides into lock like so. And it's that simple. And this cable just slots into the controller itself, which comes with this fan pack. So really, when you think about it, I suppose it's not that expensive when you're getting the controller as well. And all you need to do is populate this USB 2.0 to the header of the board. And there's also another one here, PCI Express cable here. Obviously, you're not going to need all of those, and you've got the ARGB connector here. I think that's 5 volt. And then we also have the connector here that goes in. And that's it. Now, it looks like there's different mounting locations here where you can mount this radiator. You can either pull it forward or have it going back, depending on where you want it situated, really. So I'm just going to quickly put a screw in to hold this up, and then we can get the screws in. So this should be enough to hold this radiator here in position. And again, it looks pretty sleek in here. We got a big vent on top here as well. So that's going to be drawing air from inside the case through the radiator, as you can see here. Now, you noticed I kept the plastic on, and that's to stop any sort of compound getting smudged all over the case. And I pull this cover off, and this is probably, in my opinion, the easiest way to fit a water cooler on a computer. I see people faffing around trying to do all this when the PC's standing up, and it's too difficult. Just make life easy for yourself and do it this way, and you'll probably find it a lot easier to do. So we have the bracket on here. It's not going to fit because that looks like that's for Intel. So I need to just turn this and replace this with another AMD AM5 socket bracket, which does come in the kit. They just turn and pull off like so. So let me go ahead and get that out of the box. Now, again, the pipes are coming down from the right-hand side here. You can have that mounted. That is probably the normal way of doing this. You can either have it this way or you can have it mounted, the pipes on the left-hand side. But again, I think that's going to be a bit tight there because these are quite long pipes. So we've got the bracket on here now, and let's just mount this onto the board. So let's go ahead and slot that in. Now, they do look a bit of a stretch there, those pipes, by the looks of it. But what we'll do is I'll try it out, and if it doesn't work, I can always rotate that round the other way and try to get away with it with the pipes on the left-hand side if it's a bit of a stretch. And that's what I'll do. But it might be okay. We'll give it a go once it's up and running. So we can always rotate this after the fact if we wanted to. But I've managed to get this all screwed down now, as you can see. And again, that does look a little bit on the stretched side for me. But again, that's how it's meant to be. I think those could rotate, that pump could rotate round to the left maybe a little bit more there. And that would give it a little bit less stretching on that left-hand side one there. But it's not causing any major issues, but I might rotate that a little bit. So let's just go ahead and put the connector in, and I can see the connectors are slightly to the right there, so I might rotate that afterwards. But let's get this built and get the film done, and then I can do the fettling afterwards once it's all built. So I'm just going to sort these cables out and get these all plugged in. Let's go ahead and get the power supply in. He's gone for the Corsair ATX 3.0. This is the RME series RM1000E. So 1000 watt power supply, and that should be plenty for the card he's got. And it's as you can see here, we've got fully modular here, so we'll just populate the ones that we need right here, and that's the beauty of this. We don't have to populate all of these. So let's go ahead. These are the ones I've gone for here, and we'll get this mounted inside the case. And you can see we do have plenty of cable management area here, but people go a little bit overboard with the cable management. I see people putting cable ties every inch, and it's just like literally there's not a bit of movement in the cables. That's all well and good, but if you ever have to service the computer, you're going to have to cut all those off to gain access. So having bare minimum cables, no one's going to see it. It's just OCD really for cable management, I think. So let's go ahead and mount this, and it's 4 screws. Just screw this in, and we should be pretty much good to go here. So I've said it once, and I'll say it a million times. Stop cheaping out on your power supplies. Buy a decent power supply, and it will last you for years, and it will protect your hardware. If you're using one of these cheap power supplies that you see for £30, and you're going for put a big graphics card in there, and it's going way above what it's recommended to do, you're going to end up with major problems and probably end up taking out some of your hardware. So let me just plug in some of the cables here. We've got the USB 3.0 cable. We also have the front panel connector here, which is quite nice. It's on one connector here for this case. So we're going to go ahead and do that. And we also have USB here. So let's go ahead and put these in. This is, I think, the USB. So I'm going to go ahead and plug these into the board. USB 2.0, I think these are. And I think one of those is for the pump. And we'll get that plugged in. I'm just trying to reach for my torch to see, because the camera tripod's in the way and I can't actually see where the blank one is. So I've got it around the right way. And you can see me hitting the tripod there because it's right in front of me. And building computers with a tripod in front of you is not easy. It's an absolute nightmare because it just gets in the way. So the front panel connector is pretty straightforward. Just plug that straight in. No working out what wires go where, because it's all been done for you. And I think that's how all cases should be manufactured. That should be a standard thing now. And also we've got audio cable going through here. This is for the audio, and that only goes in one way as well. It's got a blank on there. Just need to rotate that the right way. Sorry, my arm's in the way there, but this is the problem when you're doing, cable. If I wanted to do a video just on cable connections, that would be outside of the case really and showing you, because you couldn't do it while you're building. And there's also this connector right here as well, which is what I put in, which is for the actual CPU here. And there is another one there next to it, and you don't need to populate both of those. So we've got most of the cables done now. So I'm going to go ahead and take care of the GPU. And what we'll do here is we're going to pull this sticker off here. And all I need to do next is just basically mount the GPU. Now it is a vertical mounted GPU. And I just need to sort out this and plug this into the motherboard. Need to remove this plastic cover here for the connector and slot that in. I haven't got that on camera, sorry about that, but it's just a simple case of slotting that in and then screwing it down. Just going to slot this in to the PCI slot on the actual motherboard here. But like I said, this is not a how to build a computer video really. It's just taking you along for the ride while I'm building it. So I've got that slotted in there, and I need to now pull out a couple of little expansion covers here for the back and then put the GPU in. But let me just go ahead and put the 3 other fans in showed you how to do the fans. I'm not going to show you again, but just going to put these 3 inside here and put these into the front here. These are going to be drawing air in from the outside into the case, and they're sort of facing you. And these will have LCD displays on them, and you can change this to GPU, CPU, and fan speeds. You can change all that inside this software once it's all done here. Okay, so that's now done. All I need to do here now is basically get this 4080 Super from Gigabyte, get that installed into the slot, and we should be good to go. You can see the actual size of this case. It's quite a big case. And don't worry about some of the cables. I'll tidy those up a little bit later on, tuck them back a little bit. So I'm just going to go ahead and get this into its slot, remove that cable from underneath, and this will slot into its position. Now this was a bit fiddly to get in with the tripod here. I had to look down the side of it so I could line it up. But once that was done, it went in okay, and I managed to tighten it up. I'm just going to put this exhaust fan in. This is a uni fan from Lian. This is the 140 TL version. You can see, I'm going to go ahead and put that in. But there's the cable into the graphics card here, and I've got the exhaust fan in as well. All turned out pretty well. I'm going to rotate that pump round afterwards, and I'll quickly boot it up and change the colors so you can see it here. This is all the lights off so you can see. Still got to fiddle with the temperatures here, but that does look pretty good. I haven't done the sensors on there for the LCD, so they all say GPU at the moment, but you can have fans, GPU and CPU on there, but you can mess around with that. And I need to fiddle a little bit more with the cable management, but other than that, it's done and it looks pretty nice. I think you agree. And I hope you'll be okay with it and happy with it, because it did turn out pretty well. The actual camera doesn't do the RGB justice. It really is a nice build and a good looking PC. Anyway, I think that's going to be about it. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. I'm pretty sure some of you are going to have your opinions on the parts used. Again, that's his choice. It's his PC. It's his money. He can choose what he wants in his build, like you can when you're building your PC. My name has been Brian from briteccomputers.co.uk. Have a lovely weekend, and I shall catch you in the next video. Bye for now.